Watching Quantum Leap, I get a very similar feeling to when I watched the first season of The Rookie. But now I have the hindsight to see that it may go sideways, and on that somewhat ominous note, let us get into this early review of Quantum Leap 2022. For those of you not in the know, Quantum Leap is a classic TV show that ran from 1899 to 1993 and starred Scott Bakula, Captain Archer, and Dean Stockwell. And to quote the Google summary, former scientist Sam Beckett finds himself trapped in time due to an experiment gone awry, leaping into the body of a different person each week. Al Calavini, at first known only as the Observer, is Sam's holographic advisor. He provides Sam with some details about his new identity and gives him guidance on how to help people affected by his presence. But with little memory to guide him, our hero is forced to bluff his way through many wacky situations. Of course, the modern media complex can't leave any classic show unscathed, so today we'll hear about the ongoing remake, or as in this case, continuation, of Quantum Leap 2022. So as this is a continuation rather than a remake, the original characters are central to the plot, at least tangentially. Now, as I'm lazy and I want to get this out rather promptly, let's take a quick trip back to Google and see the summary for this new Quantum Leap. Dr. Ben Song, lead physicist of a top secret government time travel program known as Quantum Leap, makes an unauthorized leap into the past, awakening in a different body with only fragments of his memory intact. Guided by Addison, a colleague in the present day who appears to him as a hologram that only he can see and hear, he discovers that the only way for him to leap again is to correct something in this host person's life. As Ben leaps from life to life, putting right what once went wrong, his team in the present tries to figure out why he leaped and bring him home. Now, while technically true, it misses the mark. For one, Quantum Leap is an awful name for a top secret program. It's a little bit too on the nose. But this program is the direct continuation of the original program. As such, they already understand the basics of the time travelling principles, which is to say that guided by some mysterious, possibly higher power, the traveller lands in a body of someone from the past within their lifetime, which is to say they can only travel within the period from which they were born until the present day. And they have to fix something affecting cosmic change, and when the something is changed and their mission completed, they jump to another random point and repeat the process. Now, there are tangential factors in Ziggy and Al. Al was Sam's best friend and co-worker, and when Sam leapt, Al would appear to him from the future as a hologram and would, with the help of Ziggy, a supercomputer, help him work out what he was meant to do. This is explored throughout the original series and is rather hammered home in the two-parter episode The Leap Home, where Sam leaps into a member of his brother's platoon in Vietnam in the mission when his brother dies. Yet despite all his effort, he finds there is nothing he can do to change his brother's fate. Sam's adventures are very much the centre of the show and only link back to the present through Al and his off-screen life, which included many women. Because of this, the show has aged amazingly well and is not obviously linked to any one time period, and as it's not overly reliant on CGI, it can be enjoyed just as much today as it was 10 years ago, and probably in 10 years' time just as much as when it was released. However, the continuation strays from this. It feels as though we see just as much, if not more, of the modern day world than wherever Ben has jumped to. This is certainly the case in the first episode, which is to be expected as it's setting up the later series, but if anything it seems to only increase as the show progresses. Or at least in the first 3 episodes which I've seen. Despite the fact there are good actors, good acting and great production, the first episode somewhat excluded. Nevertheless, it simply does not feel like Quantum Leap. Much of it feels more like a FBI style drama, which while fine, alienates much of the audience who would have come for nostalgic reasons. Even the aspects taken from the original seem skewed. They repeatedly emphasise that it is the computer making the decisions of where to jump, when to jump, and what has to be changed. Yet, despite designing the thing, they're unable to even guess where, when, or what is expected. The computer is even totally wrong about why he's there sometimes. So it feels weird to keep emphasising that they do believe that the computer is in control. What's more, unlike the original, which essentially consisted of Al and Sam, there's a whole team in the remake on the present day Earth, of which there are 5 main characters. Even then, there's a deluge of background characters doing work in the lab, though they've not so far been included in any of the work, at least on screen. It all adds up to distract from the core of the show, or at least what the core of the show was: the time travel, the exploration, and humanity shown by all people throughout time. On a more personal note, I do hate what they've done to the hologram in this. In the original, Al being projected into Sam's mind would occasionally intersect with objects that would come through him. However, in the new series, when this happens, she flickers like a hologram, but she isn't a hologram, at least, not in the strictest sense. It doesn't really make any sense. She even interacts with the world, like sitting on real world objects, which just feels out of place. And while in the original, Al would come and go as he attended to his own affairs and does research, it seems that the new Al, Addison, never leaves. And as she was supposed to be the one going, takes a rather, I could be doing this so much better than you approach, and it makes her rather unlikable. Now this is exemplified at the end of each episode. Even after achieving his goal, there's a delay before he moves on and jumps to his new time. Kind of to allow them to have a chat, which it's weird. It removes all sense of urgency from the whole series. And hell, even the moral lessons and speeches given by Ben in the past to the past characters are always more about the future storyline than the past, which rather cheapens the whole experience. In fact, in episode 3, we don't even see the face of the man he jumps into. It's as though the director is just accepting that all the past characters are irrelevant to the overall storyline and just don't matter. Which is totally juxtaposed to the original, which always showed the assumed body, and not just once in a mirror, but from the outside when viewed from other people's perspectives. This would not be so bad if the modern day arc was not, for at least the most part, utterly dull. But I have, as I often try to do, only been speaking in generalisations while ignoring the minutiae and avoiding any spoilers, and this is where that ends, so do skip ahead if you care about that kind of thing. Let's begin with the casting. On a non-spoiler note, I had marked the show to be watched when I first heard it was going into production, 2 years ago, but I didn't realise it was out until I saw a video criticising it, specifically for its rating and its casting. I can't say I'm surprised about the ratings, as even an interested party who would want to watch, I didn't know it was being released, so I imagine they're missing a core segment of their proposed audience. On the note of casting, however, I'll let heel versus babyface explain.
When the casting call for this show was leaked, released, I don't know, the show very specifically said no white men, but you could go for one of the roles if you were like fake. I'm a non-binary.
I'll leave a link in the video description if you want to know more about the rating side of things, or just want to see his whole video. And heel versus babyface, if you happen to be watching, feel free to claim this video as I ain't making anything off it anyway. But as the man says, the lead is good. In fact, I would say the whole casting is quite good. I doubt I would even notice there were no white men because all the characters are so well cast. There is a slight exception in, I guess, the trans or non-binary type coder, who stands out, quite obviously really, but even then, I can't really say I have anything against the role because it fits. The coder is always a little bit weird, not usually quite in that way, but it doesn't detract from the whole story. The fact that the show's politics lean left or far left is not in question. As I mentioned right at the beginning, it does to a degree remind me of the first season of The Rookie, which also leant to the left. Yet it was enjoyable, as while it had a political skew, it was still about the story and not about the politics. And sadly, as the rookie continued, it became more and more political and less about the story, eventually becoming unwatchable. So while I don't discount this series because of its politics, it may lean further and further into it and further degrade. So, onto the big spoilers. Ben uploaded his own code and left his engagement party with Addison to go rogue and jump into the past, using an algorithm to sling himself out of his own lifetime and to a specific yet still unknown point, at least to us. Doing this with the help of the super genius, the original Owl's daughter. Needless to say, I have a problem with this storyline. For instance, how does one build momentum? By moving, then stopping, then moving in the other direction. How did Owl's daughter end up as a genius? Well, while he's deceased, his wife is still alive and in the series, and by all metrics appears rather normal. And probably most importantly, how did two people, smart as they are, outwit and outscience a huge team of experts and the entire force of the US government? Now, the answer is actually provided in the series, and quite simply, it's incompetence. Ben manages to rewrite the control program, uploading his own. He gains access to the lab, bringing Owl's daughter with him, wipes the cameras, and jumps, presumably overriding whatever safeguards were in place. The team can't even keep Owl's wife under surveillance for more than a day or two. They don't notice a backdoor into their system until the whole computer, a supercomputer mind you, starts running slow due to a single access point that wasn't even entering data, only reading. The team plug a memory stick Ben hid directly into their system, as well as a hard drive they recovered from Owl's daughter, even after they knew she had already gained access to their computers, compromising their entire system. And they don't even bring in any other resources or agencies, even as they're totally compromised and outsmarted. And they lack the most basic understanding of how and why locations and times are chosen, and seem to lack any kind of real goal for their project despite being 30 years in, and as far as we know, with absolutely no results to speak of. The problems with the show don't stop with the story. Episode 1, for whatever reason, has really bad graphics, like green screening characters into a car and in a few other places, and it just looks like trash. Even though they show their skill in the following episode. So they're quite clearly capable of decent CGI. And this can be seen in other places, like when he jumps, it looks like he's dying of some kind of radiation explosion. There's a final small complaint. In the original, it would end with Sam jumping into another body and situation, which we would just never see again in the show. It really gave it some volume. Even though we saw some of his adventures, we did not see them all. We do not know how long he'd been jumping, or how many people he'd jumped into, or everything he'd experienced. The new show treats this as a in next week's episode moment, and I feel it really does impede the flow, forcing each story to be inextricably linked with the prior, whereas in the original you could watch any episode and enjoy it, and I doubt the same will be true for the new series, as it's weighed down by the overriding arc, which I doubt anyone will really care about. Which I think brings us to our conclusion of should you watch Quantum Leap 2022? Well, overall I'd give a cautious yes to those who love Quantum Leap, and a firm yes to those who just want to watch a drama. At its heart, it's a solid show, and most of the problems in the show and the issues I personally have with it are just linked to the original series. And while I seriously doubt I would have loved the show had I not seen the original Quantum Leap, I think I would have found it somewhat enjoyable, maybe a 3.5 out of 5, so a 6 or a 7 out of 10. As it stands, having seen the original, it's definitely more like a 6 than a 7, but it's by no means the worst continuation or remake we've seen, and it may even prove to be quite good, though take that with a rather huge grain of salt. But that's all for today, and I've been Alexander, and this has been Should You Watch Quantum Leap 2022.